What's up, everybody, man? Back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla Minus Zero news and updates. Today we've got some news that is going to be pretty interesting and, if true, highly controversial. Today we'll be diving on into some major reports on Godzilla Minus Zero, which teased the film going international, having a much bigger scale and scope than the last movie, having more kaiju action, a darker tone, and teasing that Godzilla's going to become a hero? Let's talk about it. Thanks for checking out another Godzilla news and updates. You gotta like the video though. I don't know why you haven't yet, so just do it right now. Alright, just like the video. With that out of the way, thank you very much. Let's show off some artwork like always. This first piece comes to us from Hispanic Goji, and this is the woman praying artwork. Of course, with the new G logo for Godzilla Minus Zero, a lot of people, myself included, have seen a woman praying in the logo. Like, she's there in the silhouette of the G, and this does a really cool, very moody job representing this woman. Obviously, a version of Noriko connected to Godzilla in this kind of horrific way. You know, I love the way she's bleeding into him. The way that he did the hair here is so amazing. A lot of people are curious if Noriko is going to have some sort of connection to Godzilla, which we will go in depth with in this video. What that connection is going to look like and what that might be for her. Is it going to be a literal physical connection where she's going to be transforming into a monster like Godzilla? Is there going to be some sort of more mythological connection like we talked about in the previous Minus Zero video where we were discussing who Godzilla might fight, like some sort of spiritual connection to Godzilla and Mothra? Or is it going to be something more horrific? Is she going to turn into something like Hedorah, or her body's going to disintegrate, or it's going to be just radiation poisoning, or who knows? There's so many possibilities. It's so moody. It's so cool. Love even the nuke going off in the background, very subtle, and how it almost looks like an eyeball in the middle. Like, I don't know. It's super neat. I hope the movie itself is as moody. In the last Godzilla Minus Zero news and updates, I went really in depth with the origin and the complicated truth behind many reports that Godzilla Minus Zero would return to the classic style of Toho filmmaking, and that it would bring Godzilla back to suitmation. That this would be our first proper, full-on live-action Godzilla in suitmation since 2004. And I went in depth with how that's not the case, and where that report came from, a very innocent place. And yet now here comes along a new challenger, continuing the reports of suitmation in Godzilla Minus Zero, claiming a very different source than the last person, this time claiming Takashi Yamazaki himself. So let's get into what is perhaps, if true, the most controversial news we will discuss about Godzilla Minus Zero, and why I don't think it's real. So let's just jump into it. I've never heard of INVC news in my entire life, but some Godzilla fans were reporting on this source as if it was reputable on Twitter. And so I'm gonna go into this article and explain. I don't think it means anything at all, but if it does, boy are we in for a very interesting film. I've never heard of this news source. When I looked through the website, it appears to all be slop and engagement bait, and this article reads so strongly of AI. It reeks of AI. But their Minus Zero report gives us a ton of details that no one else on the internet has reported, which is another reason why we can say not reputable. If this was reputable, other people like Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter would pick up this information and run with it, but they haven't because it's not reputable. But what is it alleging? It does have some interesting ideas, and I think that some of these ideas are rooted in fan theory, and some of these ideas are just straight up like, that's a different movie. It starts with a plot synopsis that says, the story continues where we left off, in the shadows of post-war Japan's fear, survival, and hope. And that I absolutely believe. I do think that's going to happen. They cite Yamazaki stating this with no source, claiming that this happened during the reveal for the film, although it does not happen in Godzilla Festival, so more indication that this is made up. It continues by stating, but this time Godzilla's return will change humanity like never before. I'm sure that's also going to be true. It alleges that the title Minus Zero was explained by Yamazaki as symbolizing Japan's journey from destruction to recovery, while delving deeper into the psychological and national trauma, stating, if Minus One was about despair, Minus Zero is about what happens when despair meets resilience. Once again, I could also see that being the case. That didn't happen. Yamazaki never said that, but I could see that being the case. That's a pretty good read on that title. That's actually a pretty interesting interpretation of it. They continue and and state that Yamazaki apparently confirmed a blend of miniature model work, traditional suitmation, and modern CGI to maintain a tangible realism of destruction, which they didn't, and there won't be. They continue going on stating that insiders suggest Minus Zero is targeting a late 2026 global theatrical release with simultaneous IMAX screenings in Japan, the United States, and Europe. Now that actually does seem to come from The Hollywood Reporter, as we'll cover here in a second. Finally, it states that rumors suggest Minus Zero will explore new military technology, underwater research bases, and a human-led attempt to coexist with Godzilla. They end by reporting that a trailer is supposedly on the way in February 2026. Production timelines make absolutely no sense for us to get a trailer in February 2026. It's too early for a trailer for this film. We're probably going to get a trailer in the summer of 2026 at the soonest. I'm thinking probably May by the full out earliest, but more than likely June or July, just like Godzilla Minus 1. As for the freaking description there at the bottom, Minus Zero will explore new military technology, probably, because it's set a few years after Minus 1. Undersea bases, I don't know where they're getting that, maybe Godzilla the Ride Great Clash. Oh, and then this contextualizes it. A human-led attempt to coexist with Godzilla. That's Godzilla King of the Monsters. Godzilla King of the Monsters explored new technology, an undersea research base, and of course, a human-led attempt to coexist with Godzilla. Despite the fact that this comes from an absolutely unreputable source and means nothing at all, the idea of Godzilla turning hero is something that is very prevalent within the fan base. And one theory put it into perspective in a way that I actually really dig, and that was from Dangerville themselves. I got a comment from Dangerville in one of my recent videos, and I just thought it was a really fascinating theory on how Godzilla could turn heroic. I personally, as I've stated many times over, I'm very against the idea of Godzilla being a heroic monster in the Minus One universe. I think it completely undercuts the original film. I think it's a very big misstep. I do not want that at all. And I don't think they're going to go that direction. I don't personally think there will be a heroic monster in the Minus One universe. The only one that could possibly, slip into that could be Mothra, but even then, I do not think we're getting a heroic monster in the Minus One universe. But if we have to, I don't know why we would have to, Godzilla has stayed a villainous force through not only sequels, but through like versus movies before. He's a villain in Godzilla Raids Again, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla. Halfway through Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, he finally makes a switch, and then he's kind of villainous in a couple of those other Showa films before going full-on superhero. The Heisei series maintains Godzilla as being a more villainous force, all the way up until towards the very end with Godzilla vs. Destroyer and Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. In the Millennium series, Godzilla often played the part of the villain, taking on equally villainous or neutral monsters. We saw that in Godzilla 2000. We saw that in Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. GMK makes Godzilla the full-out villain while taking on other monsters. And Godzilla Final Wars maintains Godzilla's semi-neutrality. If there is a way to get Godzilla to be a hero, or let's just say less of a villain, this is the only way that I can get into. And this was from Dangerville. They say, I personally like the idea that Noriko is connected to Godzilla, and that union is what humanizes him. The Zero element of the title would imply that he's now no longer a negative force, but he's not entirely positive either. Just a neutral force of nature, not good or bad. I built upon that, being like, that's actually a really cool idea, and that would mean the G in the poster could become even more symbolic, because the G in the Godzilla Minus One poster is supposed to represent Godzilla's silhouette, whereas many people see the G in the new poster representing Noriko praying, taking the place of Godzilla, in a way, creating that literal connection, that literal coexistence, like showing that blending between the two characters in a really cool symbolic way, and that's kind of what that artwork from Hispanic Gojira represents. It's really neat. Do I think that's the route they're going? Not personally, but I've seen many people really into that theory. I don't have any clue what the thing on Noriko's neck could possibly mean. I could see them going a psychic route with it, where she has some sort of psychic connection to Godzilla, and she kind of takes on the role of like a Miki Higuse from the Heisei series. Maybe she can even telepathically connect to Godzilla. Maybe she's haunted by nightmares of Godzilla. Maybe she can sense Godzilla like Will Byers could sense the Mind Flayer. Maybe she could somehow, some way steer Godzilla into battle or get him out of a city. I don't know. I personally have no clue. I think it's going to be a much smaller scale, more personal physical trauma that happens to her. I don't know why the remains of Godzilla or the G cells in her would possibly create a psychic link, as if I get a blood transfusion from somebody, I don't all of a sudden have a telepathic link to that person. I have that person's blood in me. She's got Godzilla cells in her. They could run havoc on her body, but they're probably not going to connect her to Godzilla. Even Biollante and Godzilla, who were created from the same cells, did not have a literal psychic connection between them. It was only Miki Higuse, who was acting as a third party outside of that, who was already telepathic, who could connect to or sense the spirits of both creatures. So even in that context, we did not have that psychological connection between the two, or the telepathic connection. So I personally don't want Godzilla to become any sort of heroic force, but if there has to be a way to humanize him or to try and understand his perspective, Noriko's suffering and potential connection to Godzilla is the only way I could see going about that in a compelling and not cheesy fashion. And even then, I'm still not into that idea, but I just thought it was such a cool theory that I'd bring it up. And if they do go the route of trying to humanize Godzilla, that's the best way to go about it. I think that is still a compelling way to go about that. All right, that's where I'm going to end it for today. Thank you guys so much for going on this one with me. I really appreciate it. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to continue to make videos like this for you. If you want to support the Patreon, you can using the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.